Welcome to the Sunriver Anglers Fly Tying Corner. This month we're going to tie a Chromie Buzzer Chironomid. I'm going to start this pattern with a glass bead on the hook, and I'm going to tie thread on the hook behind the bead and clip off the excess. And then I'll slide this bead backward and tie in front of the bead, actually crossing the bead with the thread, and back over the other side to drop it in place and make sure it's fixed on the hook so it doesn't slide back and forth. The first material I'm going to attach is an ultra wire fine, and I'll attach this right behind the bead and tie it all the way back to the tail set position of this fly, which is well down the bend of the hook. And the hook I'm using is an Alec Jackson Crystal Chironomid, a size 11. I really like this hook for tying chironomids. It works well. From here, I'm going to tie in my the Mirage tinsel in large, and I'll wind that forward over the abdomen of this fly in consecutive wraps all the way up to the bead. And tie off the excess. Or clip off the excess. And then I'll rib this material with a ultra wire fine in red, and I'll rib that right up to the back of the bead and tie off the excess. Next, I'm going to take two goose biots in white, and we'll tie these on to form the wing pads of this chironomid. I'll tie first the near one with several wraps. And then I'll tie the far one in place, again with several wraps. And then I'll jump over that bead once again and tie in front of the bead near the head. And in this case, I frayed my thread a little bit, but we'll fix that later. So I'm going to fold the far biot forward and tie it off over the bead, and fold the near one forward and tie it off, and then we'll clip the excess. And tie over the butts with several wraps of thread. And then I'll move right into a whip finish, and I'll whip finish the head of this fly and tie it off. And now let's come back and fix that little indiscretion I had and clip off the frayed thread that I left behind. The next step is I'm going to use an orange Sharpie, really an orange, and I want to color in that biot and just add some life and some color to it. So I'm going to take the orange Sharpie and I'm going to mark up about the back half of this wing pad on the Chironomid on both sides. So now I'm ready to apply the finishing touch on this fly. I'm going to use a UV resin, clear cure goo, and I'll coat just one layer right over the thorax of this fly, and I'll use my light and cure this with just a few seconds of UV light on the subject. And then I'm going to come back and put a second layer on, and in this case I'll put a big, not a big drop, but a drop right on top of the thorax. And I'll use my dubbing needle to spread this over the remainder of the fly, over the abdomen, over the wing pads, and over the thorax, underside and top side of the fly, to make sure I've got a nice translucent body of resin over the entire fly. Just keep working this until you're happy with it. And in a final step, I will once again use my UV light and illuminate the fly and cure this resin. Now this particular resin dries with a little bit of tackiness to it, and so I can fix that just by taking some head cement and applying that over the top of the UV resin. It just adds a little, again, just a little more durability, and I'm just going to paint this over the top of the fly, and then we'll let that dry. So that's our Chromie Buzzer. You can see the underside and the back side of this fly as I rotate it in the vise. So that's this month's Sun River Anglers Fly Tying Corner. Thanks for listening.